Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And tonight's subject is one of the few people who's had a profound effect on all of those, by way of introduction.
I am the greatest. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Who else could that be but Muhammad Ali, who died recently at the age of 74? Nice African-American boy born in Louisville, but he lived much of his life in Chicago. One of my friends and her girlfriend once went to visit him when he was the heavyweight champion of the world, and it's still living on the south side of Chicago, and he and his wife just let him in the house and talk with him for a while. We're going to look at him primarily as a boxer, but also as a social figure and a political figure as well. But we're going to start out with the Wall Street Journal, giving you an overview of his life. By many accounts, he was the most recognizable man in the world throughout much of his career.
Muhammad Ali, the iconic boxer widely hailed as one of the most influential athletes in American history, has died at age 74. Known for fighting with his mouth and mind as well as his gloves, Ali went from controversial to almost universally admired over the course of his 21-year career. The three-time heavyweight champion was born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. on January 17, 1942, to a middle-class family in Louisville, Kentucky. At 12 years old, he learned to box after having his bike stolen, and by high school was already proclaiming he'd be the greatest. He first gained international recognition at the 1960 Summer Games in Rome, taking home a gold medal in the light heavyweight division. But his major break came in 1964, when after only 6 rounds, he beat reigning champion Sonny Liston in a stunning upset for the world heavyweight title.
Oh, looking so bad. Wasn't that good?
He returned to the ring to face Sonny Liston for a second time in a highly anticipated rematch. Early into the first round, Ali knocked out Liston. The whole fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Before that fight, Ali joined the Nation of Islam after becoming acquainted with Malcolm X, and shortly after changed his name to Muhammad Ali. Ali's good looks and natural ease made him perfectly suited for celebrity, and he soon drew huge throngs. His pre-fight news conferences developed into blustery overtures for the main events.
This will be like a good amateur fighting a real professional. This will be like a kid out of the Olympics meeting the fastest heavyweight champion that ever lived. This will be no contest.
An unconventional fighter, Ali preferred to dance on his toes and peck at his opponent from a distance, a style he described as float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. He was also brash and boastful, known for ridiculing his opponent in rhyme. He went on to fight a series of legendary bouts, but his reign was derailed in 1967 when he refused to be drafted into the U.S. Army in opposition to the Vietnam War, citing political and religious beliefs. A federal court in Houston found him in violation of the Selective Service Act and sentenced him to 5 years in prison, stripping him of his boxing license and titles. He was released on bail and started a lengthy appeal process. Deprived of his right to fight in the ring, Ali spoke on college campuses and briefly starred in a Broadway musical. With his case still in appeal, he won back his boxing license in August 1970. He returned to the ring to confront a new generation of fighters.
Are you still as fast as you were? I'm not as fast as I were. Man, I'm so fast last night I cut the light off in my bedroom, hit the switch, was in the bed before the room was dark.
In early 1971, Ali fought a title bout with the also undefeated Joe Frazier in what was known as the fight of the century. But after losing by decision in the 15th round, observers wondered whether Ali's best years might have been lost in the draft dispute. In 1974, he won another title bout, this time against the new champ, George Foreman, in what came to be known as the Rumble in the Jungle. He won an epic rematch with Frazier, dubbed the Thrilla in Manila, in 1975, and went on to defend his title several times, absorbing more and more punishment as the years rolled on. Shortly after retiring in 1981, he began to display a tremor and difficulty speaking.
We just hope that the people that are holding the captives are fans of mine.
In 1984, Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, bringing worldwide attention to both the disease and the long-term impact of repeated head trauma. He spent the past 3 decades as an ambassador for various causes around the world. Ali lit the torch at the opening games of the 1996 Olympics, and in 2005 was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
As a boxer, was Ali the greatest? Probably not, but close. Boxing expert Bert Sugar, whose podcast we've done, thought Joe Louis would beat him, maybe Marciano. Pound for pound, Sugar Ray Robinson was the best, and Muhammad Ali learned a lot of his style from Sugar Ray, and also some of his self-promotion. His other mentor as a self-promoter was the wrestler Gorgeous George. Here's a Telegraph boxing expert on Ali, including a description of his 4 most famous fights.
Muhammad Ali combined the footwork of a featherweight, the speed of a middleweight, but the power, strength, and determination of a heavyweight. He was renowned for the fact that he was the first person to really psychologically attack his opponents using trash talk, tearing opponents apart before they stepped into the ring with him.
If it wasn't for me, Sonny Liston would be just a dead heavyweight champion trying to find a suitable opponent.
Well, he won the title when he beat Sonny Liston in 1964, one of the great upsets of all time. 43 of 46 boxing writers had picked Liston. In retrospect, they should have seen Cassius Clay was taller with much faster hands and better legs. Couldn't punch like Liston, but he was quick enough to avoid Liston's punches. Liston, by the way, was mob-controlled and may have tried to fix the fight in one of the early rounds by rubbing liniment on his gloves to get into Clay's eyes, but it didn't work.
Having won the Olympic light heavyweight gold medal in Rome in 1960, Muhammad Ali was an unbeaten young professional fighter when in February 1964 he fought Sonny Liston in Miami. Liston was the big, brooding, dangerous, fearsome heavyweight champion of the world, and Ali came in as a 7-1 underdog. It was an extraordinary fight. Ali's speed, versatility, movement was self-evident from the off, but as the fight wore on, Ali began to take control, and by the end of the 6th round, Liston was finished. He refused to get off his stool for the 7th round, and Ali was the new heavyweight champion of the world.
He converted to Islam, and then he had the trouble with the draft board, and because of that, he missed his 4 best fighting years, so we'll never know how great he really was. But perhaps the greatest fight of my generation was the March 1971 fight with Joe Frazier, which we talked about when we did the Joe Frazier podcast. I was in New York for that when it was going on, and the atmosphere in New York City was electric.
On March the 8th, 1971, the fight of the century took place between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier at Madison Square Garden. It was an extraordinarily glitzy affair. Even Frank Sinatra was a credentialed photographer at ringside, and all the Hollywood stars were there. The fight lived up to all expectation. Frazier hurt Ali, staggered him in the 11th round, throwing those vicious hooks of his, and floored Ali in the 15th round, and took the fight by unanimous points decision.
Well, Ali won back his reputation by beating the seemingly invincible George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle, and just like he did with Sonny Liston, he avoided Foreman's punches and used his superior conditioning and a rope-a-dope strategy.
Like his fight against Sonny Liston many years earlier, George Foreman was the new, aggressive, frightening, brooding bear of a world champion. But in this contest, Muhammad Ali used the loose ropes to use a technique which later became known as rope-a-dope, in which he leaned back for several rounds and allowed Foreman, in the heat of Africa, to punch himself out, and ended up with a series of right hands, tiring and knocking Foreman down in the 8th round to win by technical knockout.
And finally, there was the 3rd Frazier fight, which was the beginning of the end for both men.
On October the 1st, 1975, Muhammad Ali met Joe Frazier for the 3rd time, their trilogy fight in Manila in the Philippines. It became known as the Thriller in Manila.
Then this might shock and amaze you, but I will destroy Joe Frazier.
Again, Ali was getting under the skin of Frazier in the build-up. There was no love lost between these two men. He said he was going to be fighting the gorilla in a thriller in Manila. The fight itself was a brutal encounter. Both men battered around the ring until, at the end of the 14th round, with Frazier's eyes closing and his face swollen, his cornerman, Eddie Futch, decided he would not come out for the 15th round, and Ali had won by technical decision.
Here's a sports writer, Robert Lipsyte, to talk about Ali as a cultural symbol with an interesting story. And again, no one mentioned this, but Ali was part of the post-JFK assassination new culture in America, along with the Beatles.
The Beatles, beginning of their first American tour, they were in Miami Beach. So they went to have a picture taken with Sonny Liston, the heavyweight champion of the world. And he took one look at these 4 little boys, and he said, "I ain't posing with them sissies." So the Beatles were stuffed back into their limo, and as second best, they were taken to Cassius Clay's training camp. Cassius Clay was fighting Sonny Liston for the heavyweight championship of the world. I was sent down to cover the fight. I go down where Cassius Clay trained, the stairs to the gym, and there's this hubbub behind me. And I asked one of the guys, some group, singers for girls. And Cassius Clay has not arrived. The Beatles turn around, because they're not going to wait for some Cassius Clay. But the guards pushed them right up. And in those days, you could push the Beatles. They pushed them right up the stairs, and they pushed all 5 of us into an empty dressing room and locked the door. The Beatles were raging, and they were banging and cursing. And then suddenly, the door bursts open. Cassius Clay, he was laughing, and he said, "Come on, Beatles, let's go make some money." And they followed him out, like kindergarten kids. February 18th, 1964. It's an amazing moment, the kind of confluence of two of the great cultural rivers of our time.
That was less than 3 months after Kennedy was assassinated. Muhammad Ali could be cruel as he was to Joe Frazier and Floyd Patterson, and he often had contradictions when he talked about Elijah Muhammad and separation of the races. But he was a brilliant man, as William Buckley acknowledged when they talked about his draft status and race in America.
Charlie, if you believe that, why don't you leave the country?
Well, I like to say one thing. I could be a millionaire fugitive if I was greedy and worried about myself.
Well, you could become a Canadian and fight and send the money to Elijah.
Well, no. This is not my purpose. What I'm doing is for myself and for justice for black people. Mm-hmm. Running will kill it all and make me a coward.
I see what you mean, yeah.
You understand?
I see what you mean, yeah.
So I would rather go to jail.
Sure.
It was very early on that I recognized that no board inquiring into his intellect could ever sincerely have come to the conclusion that he was too dumb to be drafted, because he was a very bright guy. The extraordinary thing about it is that although I began thinking that he was simply special pleading on his own behalf, I ended up by thinking he was absolutely correct.
I want to close with the great interviewer from Britain, Michael Parkinson, probably the best interviewer in the world, who was also very knowledgeable about boxing.
When people ask me who I most enjoyed interviewing, I'm unable to give them an answer. If they ask me who was the most remarkable man I ever met, I answer without hesitation, Muhammad Ali. I interviewed him 4 times. I lost on every occasion.
When they told me I was going to do your show, I was honored. I like people that make me think you and you talk and you know, it's a brilliant man. He's not just an ordinary fellow. You think it's easy, come take his position. You'll find out that I'm a witty person and it's kind of hard to talk to a man like me. Champion of the whole world. So I kept working until I did it. Not only the champion of the whole world, but better than all of those before me.
I'm not going to argue with you.
The fights with Foreman revealed Ali the psychological warrior. What defined him as a pugilist, a fighter of great speed of limb and thought, an opponent of limitless courage, a true champion, were the 3 fights with Joe Frazier. The fights with Joe Frazier marked the high point of Ali's boxing career and the beginning of the end. These savage beatings both men took meant that neither would be the same again. But whilst Frazier eventually withdrew, Ali kept on baying at the moon, driven by his pride and the need to support the entourage who fed off his fame. Moreover, his folly was encouraged by admirers who seemed to believe in his invincibility against all the medical evidence.
I mean, you've been around the fight game, as you said, 27 years, and you've seen what can happen to fighters. Those shambling wrecks that go around. You see them at every boxing occasion. And what people are frightened of is they don't want that to happen to you.
What? Be a shambling wreck?
That's right.
I'm a long ways from a shambling
Oh, I'm not suggesting you are now. I'm saying that's what they're frightened that might happen.
And you're looking up at me saying, Ali, don't do it.
But you know why they say that. I mean, it's for the best possible reasons. So.
Their fear and their worry looks dangerous to them.
That's
but
right.
It's not really that dangerous to me.
Yeah. And it's the affection they have for you. They've never felt about another boxer like they felt about you.
Sadly, our last meeting was to prove prophetic. A simple medical test where he had to place a finger on the end of his nose proved difficult. He went on to fight once more after that, and those of us who loved and admired him closed our eyes. When we opened them, we saw a bloated caricature of the glorious athlete we once knew. To meet him was to be aware of a remarkable, unusual presence, not altogether accounted for by size or reputation. He was just different from the rest of us. His is an amazing story of a singular man who touched all our lives as only great entertainers can.
Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. We're going to close with Ali and another Chicago legend, one of his best friends, Sam Cooke. In 1963, a year before Sam Cooke died tragically.
This is Sam Cooke. As you can see, like me, he's awful pretty. And we are here now working on a record called The Gang's All Here. Well, I want to give you a little introduction. Only this record is talking about, me, the greatest, the various people in countries such as England and Paris. Come on, let's give it a party. Do it again now. Hey, hey, the gang's all here. We're gonna swing as one. Is New York with me? Yeah. Is Chicago with me? Yeah. Is London with me? Yeah. Hey, hey, the gang's all here. Join in the fun. Hey, hey, the gang's all here. We're gonna swing as one.